not my favorite.
If you think about it, all video games are just 1-2 buckle my shoe. Like
Yeah.
eight actions that you just repeat over again.
Yeah.
Speaking of doing things over and over again, we're back. Howdy.
Howdy.
It's a beautiful day to discuss God of War, Ragnarok. I'm William Chandler. I'm your host. Joining me as always, Chris Crossley.
What up? What up?
Love the enthusiasm. We're here on a very special occasion. It's a special day. It's not every day that two people on this show play through the same game in its entirety and then get to talk about it.
Yeah.
One might say it happens twice a year.
Yeah.
One was Elden Ring. Pretty good game.
Mm-hmm.
We liked that one. And now we're here. 6 months later or so to talk about God of War Ragnarok, a game that I think we both like. Last time we talked about it.
Yeah, I think it I think it grew on me a little more since then, but I didn't do as much stuff as I feel like you did. I don't think I could do that. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean I'm curious to hear because there's still some stuff that I need to do.
Are we cool to talk about everything?
Definitely. Yeah, we're gonna,
including like things you can find post game?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we're gonna talk about everything. I assume we found a lot of the same stuff. So I mean there's not, they pose this and God of War 2018 as a open world game, but in truth it's kind of just all a disguise, all a ruse. It's a linear game. There's some things that are out there to discover, but I feel like most people are going to see most of the same stuff.
Yeah.
It's not a Souls game where you could play through the whole game and then go, damn, I missed a whole area. It's not one of those. I don't think that's really going to happen to anyone. With maybe one exception that I came across a few hours ago. But let's so hit me up top with give me your impressions. Give me the tagline of your review.
Yeah. I think it's a really good improvement on the first one. Maybe improvement is the right word there, but it's a good sequel. It's definitely not a bad sequel. Could have easily have happened. I think it's definitely a good sequel. Really like the story, and the gameplay is like definitely fine. Like it's and they add enough stuff and change little things enough to where I was like able to really like, I don't know, sit back and play it without like getting too bored, I guess. And yeah, no, I mean I like it a lot. Is like my general feelings.
I feel like you and I are having the same difficulty thinking about this game. Like I hear it in your voice, which is that like I think every day, like it's been rolling around in my brain ever since I finished it like last week sometime. And I feel like I cannot decide if I like it more than the first one, because obviously it doesn't exist without the first one. So there's that on its own, right? It's like this is just building upon a foundation that already exists. So inherently in my mind, it can't be really, the nature of it and the nature of how little they've changed the gameplay means that, to me, it can't be more exciting than the first game, because the first game was like a huge departure from the previous games, right? Something we touched on a little bit last time we talked about it. But I keep thinking about how much more satisfying some of the latter parts of this game are than the first one, which is just kind of like, if you even think about it for like 5 seconds, you're like, of course that's the case, because they've had 2 games to build up narrative, threads that they then tie up in this. And so that level of, like, I don't know how you release, I don't want to get sexual or anything, but I mean, that level of like building something up just to have it pay off such a long time later is always really satisfying. So I think it's better in some ways and worse in others. Like,
I think it's better, and I definitely think I like it more in the first one. Yeah, I think the first one, it definitely has that thing, and this is like my biggest conundrum with like Portal. It's just like, okay, is it better than the sequel? Is the sequel better? One can't exist without the, like, the other, and then the other one is just the improvement on that one. So it's hard to decide. But for this game specifically, I definitely think I at least like the second one more. I think if you were to like play both in a vacuum somehow and then compare those scores, like Ragnarok would be the better one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think kind of what you touched on a second ago, the story, how things go in the end, there's a lot more just happening, and it's all a lot more satisfying. And then also in the first one, like, the main bad guy, I mean, you're aware there's other Acer gods, but the main bad guy is essentially the same guy who you have, like, I don't know, 3 main boss fights with. And then in this game, at least, it's like, yeah, Odin and Thor are the issues, but then there's also Heimdall and these like other guys along the way. It's just, there's a lot more going on in this game, all over the place. I think it definitely is up higher in my books personally.
There's definitely a lot more, like, just more stuff. I mean, they've gone out of their way to really pack in a lot of characters. Like, in comparison, the first game felt like pretty focused, like footstep by footstep retelling of a very small portion of Kratos and Atreus' life, right? Like, it's like, here's just like an adventure that they go on.
It's like a day in the life of, it's literally a adventure they go on to the top of a mountain.
Yeah,
like,
it literally it focuses on them almost entirely.
Right.
With like some ancillary characters coming in here and there. Obviously, Mimir by the end of that game becomes part of that crew, but
well, even all the characters, Freya, the 2 brothers, everybody you meet, like, and all have great moments in the first game, and then have all these payoffs in the second game. And when I've thought about it, and I think you could play the second game without the first one, and just get introduced to those characters and like figure out who they are pretty quickly without the old games, and then like still have all their like arcs pay off pretty well, because they just explain everything so well again through passive dialogue.
Yep, they've definitely written this game to be possibly somebody's first one, for sure.
Yeah,
like they've gone out of their way to like make sure all that stuff is well laid out. I think I wouldn't, if somebody asked me if they were like, yo, should I just play Ragnarok if I've never played another God of War? I didn't play God of War 2018. I probably would say no, just because I think it's valuable to have those but I'm a sicko. I mean, I'm playing through all the Yakuza games starting at 1.
That's what I was about to say.
I mean, don't listen to me.
Yeah.
But
right.
But they do write it like it could be that way, and I agree with what you're saying. Like, you basically have these ancillary characters who become more meaningful in the first game, have their own full stories in this game. I mean, separate from the main cast, even. So it's interesting, but we'll get into it a little bit more in depth. Give me a score, man. Give me an infinite scale. Well, let's start. Let's do this. Give me 2018. What's your score there? God of War 2018. You're going to put that on the infinite scale. Somebody should really be keeping track of all the times we've done this, so we can. But
yeah,
I'm not going to do that.
I think I gave Elden Ring like a 5 or a 6.
Something like that. Yeah, that sounds right. I think we agreed.
So I think I would give God of War 2018 like a 3.
Okay.
And I think Ragnarok is also a 3. It's just a better 3.
I've never agreed so hard, like so much more in my life. I think even calling it, I think with the exception that better is like still in question for me. Like they are so essential to each other that
for me it is objectively better. Like imagine God of War 2018 never happened and then they dropped Ragnarok this year. Like I think we could have all played that game. No 2018.
Yeah.
Kratos just has a son and all this like back lore we're getting passively throughout the whole game. All these characters already established, but we're like learning about them throughout the game. And I think it would be great. Like I genuinely believe that. But
yeah. So
maybe not.
I agree with a 3. I think it's a really, really good game. I think some of the simplicity of 2018 is missed by me. Like ensemble casts are difficult because it's hard at a certain point to maintain a level of authenticity. And I think around the time of the final portions of this game, you start having moments where characters are meeting for the first time and you know those characters really well already. And the way that they meet, you're like, this doesn't seem right. This just for some reason doesn't seem how this would go. Like the first time somebody meets Anger Boda, they're not like, who the fuck are you and what's going on? Like it's just kind of taken at face value. And I think that stuff is obviously needed for the sake of the story and the progression and the pacing. But it's just kind of funny that you know, it's the same thing that like, to me, like the Marvel universe has gotten themselves in a really shitty position. And I haven't watched one of those in years, but you get all these characters that are like larger than life in their own way and have their own kind of mythos and lore around them. And then when you start bringing them all together, once you have so many in one place, you're like, this is just insane. I mean, this is like ridiculous, you know?
Yeah.
And it contributes to the cool factor of the end of this game for sure. But it's also, there were moments where I was like, who would say that? Who would say that? Like, I just don't like when Thrud is in your party for a second there at the end. Like it just, their dialogue is just really silly to me. But
yeah.
So let's kind of go beat by beat here. Starting so early on. Let's do kind of a three segment here. So the early game. So I've got some thoughts about the early game of this. We touched on it a little bit last time. Story-wise, it's a good hook, some good characters. Gameplay-wise, give me your progression. Like, how did you feel moving kind of from early to mid to late game in this?
I think up until some point after getting the spear, the gameplay was like kind of a miss for me, and this is partially my fault because I like replayed 2018 semi recently, so it's just like I honestly don't recommend that with this game. I think if you want a refresher, go watch one because the games are so similar.
Yeah,
it's just very easy to get burnout, not because playing one makes the other one bad, but it's just, video game burnout's definitely a thing. And yeah, I think I was just kind of experiencing that because they are very samey. And then, you get to play as Atreus, which I actually personally really liked pretty much every time I got to be Atreus. That was a refreshing shift for me, other than Ironwood. And then, yeah, a little bit after I got the spear, I didn't really like the spear at first. And it didn't make sense to me how that, like, the lore behind it helping you beat Heimdall. I don't know. I feel like if he can see what you're going to do / read your mind, you deciding to blow up a spear doesn't really change that. But
Yeah.
anyway, eventually I started to really like the spear after some upgrades. And then that sort of shift of like having the 3 weapons and sort of just swapping between them all and having like every single one of them having like their active abilities,
Yeah.
Just giving me constantly something to do and throw particles around on screen. I was just like, oh yeah, all right, cool. It's a little more active than
How
it
did
already was.
you kind of build, like what did you build around as your main kind of strategy? Or did you just sort of go at it?
Um,
Cuz like more so than 2018, they let you specialize in this game if you want, because you have the amulet of Yggdrasil. All your armor sets have pretty
yeah,
distinct um kind of passive abilities or enhancements that
yeah.
work in specific ways. So
I pretty heavily focused on defense and cooldown.
okay.
So anything that was upping my defense or the cooldowns of all my active abilities in terms of the armor, and then the skill tree.
I just bought everything.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like I was just flooded with XP, so I just kind of
Mhm.
had everything XP related unlocked at all times.
Yeah. I feel like one of the smartest things that they did in this game, and I don't remember if they did this in the first game. I think they touched on it a little bit near the end. I mean, I guess out of necessity they did, because near the end of the first game you get the blades, right? The chain blades
Oh
from the
yeah,
previous God of War games. It's a big reveal. It's one of my favorite things
yeah,
in
one of the
that
best
game,
parts.
and I do not think, by the way, anything in this game is as cool as that. I'm sorry. I think I feel pretty comfortable in
Um,
saying that.
I think if you come from the original games, for sure, and that's when I would, if someone's asking me if they need to play the other one before this one, I would ask if they played the originals, because I think seeing the full journey
Yeah.
matters. But like, if you haven't, then I don't even know if that moment hits. It's like, oh cool, I got a new weapon. It's
Yeah,
You
yeah.
probably don't even know what's actually like going on or the gravity
For
of the
sure.
situation.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's just the
I
ballsiness too of waiting that long. Like that
oh
is
dude,
that is like the back third of that game, if not like
yeah,
slightly more. I mean, it's
no, it's
crazy.
pretty late, and then also it's like that is something that isn't very like heavily spoiled online. Like I never read that or see
Yeah.
that. Like
Yeah.
the online communities were like so uh surprisingly kind to not like talk about that online a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh and yeah, no, I agree. That's definitely one of the highlights of the first game. I don't know if I would say nothing in this game beats that, because there's so much cool stuff, but yeah, I agree that it's definitely hard to beat for sure.
And so at a point when you get those chain blades, then they it's funny because like I never read them as fire weapons in my
Yeah,
in the old games, right? Like they never it just I
I've
mean,
thought about that a lot. Yeah,
obviously they were hot, I guess. Like I remember
yeah,
the burns, but I don't really remember them being like of the fire element, I guess. So but
right.
so in that game in 2018 they add in elemental focus, right? So like when you get
Yeah,
the chain blade, suddenly um enemies that are of an ice kind of origin, you do more damage with the chain blades than you do with your axe. And they
yeah,
really lean into that in this game a lot more,
yeah.
which
I noticed that
necessitates
too.
switching weapons a lot.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. I
yeah,
because
same.
it's easy for me to fall into like a pattern of just picking the same thing over and over again to do when I
Yeah,
play action games, which
yeah,
is kind of part of the reason why action games aren't usually my thing. Like Devil May Cry and stuff like that. I've played through most of them, but I always find a play style that's extremely comfortable and don't deviate from that much. So like, when they start adding new weapons and stuff, I'm like, yeah, okay, like whatever. So in this game, they really go out of their way to force you to change a lot, which I think adds to the complexity of the gameplay, makes it a little bit better than the first one. Um, Something that so my build leaned heavily into stun.
Hmm.
I spent at least half this game using my fists.
Oh wow, that's funny. I like using the fist a lot too. One of my favorite things to do is to throw the axe into someone, stun them frozen, and then just beat the ever living shit out of them.
Totally. Yeah, I did a lot of that. We touched on this a little bit, but you mentioned that you didn't do a lot of the side stuff. We can get more in depth in this, but one thing in particular that was key to my build was armor that you got only from a side quest. That was
Okay.
Lunda's armor. Did you do that one?
I don't think so, but I'm familiar.
So like when you do that basically favor for her, you get a set of armor that's like Lunda's lost armor or whatever, and it
Yeah.
has a passive ability that using either your shield or your fists poisons the enemy,
Okay.
and if you stack enough poison, then they lower by one level from
Okay.
their level. So like
Yeah.
in some of the boss fights and stuff, you could just like beat the shit out of people, and then they get weaker the more you're beating the shit out of them.
Huh.
And it's
Interesting.
really good, and it counts for parries or blocks or shield like dashes whenever you break
Yeah.
somebody's guard and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I really leaned into that in especially in the latter half of this game, where some of the boss battles get pretty tricky. I would say. I mean, like there's some moments where like
You definitely have to like know the pattern and not make a mistake.
yeah,
Kinda.
I
Yeah.
mean, they expect you to die. Like it's not like a narrative game where they're like, okay, here's a gimme. You know, like they expect you to
Yeah.
have to do something a couple of times.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so gameplay wise, I think I agree with you. It really comes into its own like once you start getting to like late mid game. Around the time you get the spear is like really where I started having fun.
Yeah.
But I
Same.
can't tell if it's because of the game or just because of me. Like I was just finally like warming up to it. Uh,
I
but
think it's the game
yeah,
finally becomes more fun.
yeah, the variety in the early game is kind of lacking. I think
Yeah.
enemy variety and just I don't know. There's something weird about. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong here. Killing the smaller creatures or pretty much most animals in this game, like with a few exceptions of like boss tier or like higher tier animals like the big lizards and shit or like the dragons, um but like those tiny little crawl fuckers or like any of the like smaller animals, just not fun, like from start to finish, like just not
Yeah,
fun.
I agree. Yeah.
Like I feel like I don't know, maybe this is like going on a tangent, but you know how there's like always one enemy in a video game where you're like, why did
Yeah.
you even bother with this?
Right.
I feel like there's like a few of those in this
Yeah.
game. It's like,
Yeah.
why did you do this? Like the frogs that stick to the walls and spit shit at you. Why did
Yeah.
you like you didn't have to do that. I mean, I don't
I
know.
also really hate the thing where you have to throw the spear in the wall to traverse the jump that Kratos could literally make anyway.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I
That stuff
really didn't
is
like that.
really funny. Something that like kind of continually comes up is the game loves to make you, even on the main path. I mean, definitely in the side quests, but even on the main path, they love to make you retread ground you've already tread again with the new weapons, so you can do shit like that. Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, here I'll now I have this spear, so I can do gymnastics, or like the
Right.
when you get Freya on your side and you start drawing those runes,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But um, yeah, there's so much stuff in this game compared to the first game that it is kind of an unfair comparison. I think the simplicity of the first game like still really speaks to me, but it's nice to have the some of the variety um, once you've reached like a later point in the game. Um, did you so you kind of start out pretty predictably in Midgard, but almost immediately end up in the dwarf realm, which
Yeah.
uh, I thought was kind of boring the first time I was there. I didn't really like it,
Yeah,
and
same.
then I don't know, like there's some side stuff there, like freeing that weird whale thing. I don't know if you did that.
Yeah.
Um, that was an emotional plea. You know what I mean? Like I see an animal in need, and I will definitely prioritize that over anything
Oh
else.
man, you should watch Avatar. They have a whole whale thing, bro. I'm not kidding.
Give me the whales, bro. Get
I
free the fucking whales.
guarantee it might make you cry.
Oh god, I don't need that. I just listen, man. I'm getting soft. I'm getting softer.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, for sure.
Um, maybe I will watch out. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Well, so you've got some side quests like that kind of pull you off the main path, but they kind of keep you pretty focused in that point. The oil rig one, Mimir's like, "Hey, brother, help me out." Of course, I'm going to help out Mimir. He's a good lad. Um, and I think the character stuff at this point is still finding its own. So, like at Svartalheim, uh,
Yeah.
the dwarf place, and Vanaheim, I was kind of sleeping.
Yeah.
I was like, I do not like this very much. Like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
think this game kind of sucks. The layout of the worlds is okay. Um, Vanaheim is especially heinous with the poison plants that are on the ground and on the
Yeah, dude.
ceilings.
Oh my gosh.
Um, just little things like that I'm like, who the fuck made this game and why?
Yeah.
Story wise, there's like this. Yeah, I mean, Svartalheim and Vanaheim feel like you're meandering around a lot. Um, you know, I think going back to those places is really satisfying later in the story because of how much better you equipped you are and how much more interesting things have become, how much higher the stakes are. Um, but the first time you're there is pretty bad. And then I think when you take over as Atreus and go out to, I don't even know, is it yeah, Ironwood the first time that you play as Atreus, right?
Yeah. Ironwood.
The switch to playing as Atreus was interesting at first, but Ironwood as well suffers from the same kind of level design that I think Vanaheim suffers from early on, which is just that it's not that interesting to traverse. And there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
Like
And
they've
it's right after you go find the giant serpent and Freya as Atreus. Like they're back to back
yeah.
segments. So it's like you just did something pretty fucking interesting as Atreus, and now you're doing more Atreus stuff that's like immediately not as engaging.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you're right. So the first time you play as Atreus, you hang out with Sindri and you get some
Yeah.
one-on-one bro time.
Right.
That's right. That was a cool reveal.
Yeah. No, I like that.
Picking up as Atreus and playing that. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed their relationship.
Yeah.
Like Sindri and Atreus together is a good pairing, which you wouldn't think. Like that wasn't like what I was anticipating. Like, oh yeah, Sindri and
Yeah.
Atreus are gonna be fucking bros, but like
Yeah.
they really make it work. Like they sell it that they've kind of grown pretty close over time. Yeah, Freya early on in this game, her like just extreme rage and need for revenge is wears a little thin early on. Like it's
Yeah.
just like I get it. I mean, I don't know. Like narratively, I suppose we did like fuck her over pretty hard, but the
Saved her life.
yeah, right. The blind rage for this long. It's like how long has it been? Like some years now, and you're still this upset. Like I don't know, dude. You know what really worked on me is later on when you go to find her turtle,
Oh yeah.
tortoise,
Yeah.
and Charles, and he's cold.
Yeah.
Dude, that upset me so much.
Yeah. Same.
Again, dude. Again,
Did
I'm
you
getting
go
soft.
there post game?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that I made it a point to like go everywhere I could as soon as I saw, oh, I haven't been here. Oh, I haven't been here. Like I
Yeah.
needed that stuff. Yeah, there's a good payoff for that. Like Charles, I knew what Atreus meant the instant he said to the guy. I don't even remember his name. Did you hear that dialogue? Or maybe it's part of a side quest. That was anyone in the house actually when you went, or no?
I forget what happens exactly.
So when I went to Charles, when I went to the house that Charles is, um, inside was one of the dudes from Vanaheim, the Traveler with the big sword, who fights
Oh, okay.
under Freyr.
Okay.
And he was like chilling by the fire, like, you know, living.
Guy that like sacrificed himself on the boat that you never used.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. What is with the deal with that boat?
Well, it's ours now.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. They clearly. Yeah. We can talk about that more. I feel like so the dude who sacrificed himself. There's a side quest where it turns out he's not dead.
Right.
You show up and he's fine, and it is one of the largest areas in the game. Like legit, one of the largest areas in the game is just a side quest, and it's huge. It's like Dragon Crater or something or other. There's 3 areas associated with it in Vanaheim: a jungle, some wetlands, and a giant like plains-esque crater. I probably spent 10 hours just there, like mopping up side quests and getting gear and shit, and rescuing him. There's a whole thing there about you go there and you see another frozen lightning bolt, like what you did with Thor at the start of the game, and you were never there before, so you're like, what the fuck is going on? And if you do a bunch of side quests for spirits, they tell you different pieces of the story about how Thor fought someone else there in the past, and it created that lightning bolt. And then as you piece it together, you realize that it's Kratos' wife. When she had the axe originally, she was there, and they fought. And it's like a big thing because Kratos never knew about that kind of stuff. So there's some good shit there. But if you rescue him, God, I can't believe I can't remember his name. He moves in, like there's a little like side dialogue thing where you rescue him, he gets back to Freyr's camp, and he's sitting there, and then Atreus is like, oh, so what are you gonna do now? And he's like, I think my fighting days are over, I'm like too injured to continue. And he's like, hey, if you're looking to settle down, I know someone who needs your help. And in my mind I was like, fuck yeah, dude, Charles. And then when you go there at the end of the game, sure enough, that dude's there,
cool,
like chilling in the house. But yeah, the Charles thing hurt my feelings when you first got there, and he was cold.
I feel like this is a good time to comment on something I have found out.
Yeah, please.
So you did that pre-post game with Atreus as your companion.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out, in the post game, they open up everything and make all the side quests that maybe for some reason wouldn't have been available.
Yeah.
After a certain point, available again. So you can do everything in the post game, but you don't have a trace in the post game.
Yeah.
You have Freya. So I was reading, and apparently they recorded passive dialogue with Freya for all the side quests that you would normally not get if you did them in the pre-post game with Atreus. So I just think that's an interesting tidbit. Depending on when you do stuff, you would get different dialogue.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think I kind of gathered that earlier as well, because you know how there are moments where randomly you'll switch between the two depending on what Atreus is doing and depending on what Freya is doing.
Right. Yeah.
So there was like a quest I did with, I don't remember if it was with Atreus or with Freya, but it's after the point where you have both. And they commented and they said, I wonder what Atreus would say about this, or something like that. Or it was like, I hope Freya would be happy that we did this, that kind of thing. And in my mind, I was immediately like, fuck yeah, what if, like, so, And I do think that there are some things that are just more narratively satisfying with one of them versus the other one.
Right. Right.
Like I don't know, like what.
Like, what if you had done the quest you were just talking about with Freya instead?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, would she comment on Charles needing someone to, to be there? So would he then go there as well? Like that kind of
Right. Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. There, this game is really good at attention to detail.
Yeah.
I think like there's a lot of moments throughout it where you're like, oh, they accounted for something like that. Um, yeah. I mean, I think they do a really good job of building the relationship. I think going to Jotunheim, while boring gameplay wise, is interesting, like narratively. Getting the stuff with Angerboda and her telling you the prophecy that if you played 2018, you already know, like Kratos is gonna die. He saw it. He already knows.
Yeah.
But Angerboda tells or shows Atreus, and he doesn't take it well.
No.
And I think all of the stuff that happens in Jotunheim there is really worthwhile from a narrative perspective. And I think that's like the theme of this game is like worthwhile from a narrative perspective, but from a gameplay perspective, you're just kind of like, oh god, like more of this, more of that, more game. Really like the stuff with Angerboda's grandmother.
Yeah.
And something that I feel stupid about, by the way, I didn't notice this until the end of the game. Is fucking Jormungandr, the world serpent, is the snake
Yep.
in
Yep.
Jotunheim. I did
Yeah.
not.
I didn't get that until later as well.
I don't know why it just didn't connect for me.
Because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's true.
They don't explain a time displacement at any point that I recall. So it just doesn't make it. They definitely reference Loki, Atreus, knowing Jormungandr somehow prior to you meeting it in 2018, and there's like weird stuff there. But they definitely, at least to my knowledge, never explain why you would be meeting younger Jormungandr later.
Yeah.
After meeting old, I don't think they took that I can remember ever explained that very well. But
The only thing that I know is like in actual mythology, supposedly Jormungandr in his battle with Thor gets knocked into the past. That's like
the original giant, not the
no, the world
serpent?
serpent. The world serpent in his fight with Thor, he always gets knocked into the past. Like he gets hit so hard he travels through time, basically. Is like part of that mythos. So
Okay.
so that is basically a reference. Like what happened here is a reference to that origin, that idea that you're like the snake ends up back in the past, and that's where Atreus is when he puts the soul in. So like
So does that happen in the climax of the game at the end? Does
yes.
Jormungandr get knocked into the past?
Yeah.
Oh, I did. I totally missed that. I remember Jormungandr showing up and them fighting. I totally missed him getting knocked into the past.
Yeah, Thor like punches him into one of the giant like portal gate things, one of the World of Warcraft gates.
Yeah.
And he goes back into the past, and but see, the thing is, like, I don't understand how he goes from being giant to being, well, but I guess Angerboda is a giant too, and he's already big when you meet him in Jotunheim, so I guess it makes sense. I don't know. So maybe he dies there. Angerboda's like grandmother finds him, puts him in the basement, and then you give him that soul, and it's like a circle. It's like a big loop. I don't know. Yeah, that's all I got. because everything you do as Atreus in Jotunheim takes place way in the past. That's all I can think is like there's like a time difference there. It's like,
But that's not true. Or at least that's not explained,
it's
I
definitely
should
not
say.
explained. It's definitely
Yeah.
not explained. Yeah, but it could just be
Did
time
you
runs differently in those
did you
realms.
go there in the post game?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, and you hang
Yeah, so
out.
I feel like they would have mentioned that then, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, they could make it the subject of whatever DLCs are definitely coming because I can't
I would think there's
imagine,
DLC too. Yeah.
like, if they're not going to make another game in the Norse world, there's still some stuff they need to tie up.
I think they might. It was Corey Balrog,
Yeah.
the first director. It was him saying he didn't want to do more than 2 games, but he also didn't even work on this one as like the main director. He was like more hands off. So maybe he stepped away earlier than he originally planned, and now they'll just keep going.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, they could make a third one, but I would really like them to do something different, personally. But I don't know. I mean, I'll play it either way. I mean, the world's interesting enough, and I would want to know what happens with these characters.
Yeah.
I don't really like playing as Atreus that much. So if there's
I was just
DLC,
about to say, I bet it's going to be a Atreus DLC or an Atreus spinoff, and
'cause-
I don't
yeah,
know. Them not killing Kratos and the prophecy at the end of like people worshiping him and then him deciding, let us rebuild, like all that. I don't know if he said that, but that's definitely
yeah, that's the vibe.
you get the idea of what he's about to start doing. So
Yeah.
it's clear we're going to get to play as Kratos more, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Atreus DLC or spin-off game and then a full-on Kratos again later on.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think an Atreus DLC makes sense because he's got some business to take care of. Or they could do a Kratos DLC, tie up his story, and then next game is Atreus. I could see either one because Atreus's quest could be quite long and could go to other mythologies, I guess.
I'm
I don't know.
wondering if they're ever going to directly address that, and I hope they do. I'm wondering if it's like Kratos comes from Greece and like they're in like, their land,
Yeah.
wherever it is, and they can go to like Egypt and then go to like Japan, and then there's a bunch of crazy gods there too. Like or if it's like they're going to another like dimension type shit.
Yeah,
to
another
go to the
realm.
other- Right.
Yeah, that's one thing that I was unsure about because the thing that I feel definitely happened at the end of God of War 3 is that the world ends because he
Right.
killed
Yes.
all of the gods.
That seems very obvious.
Like, it
or at least
seemed
that's how I
like-
remember it.
Yeah.
Is that shit was fucked. There was
Yeah,
no
like
repairing it.
uninhabitable. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I feel like he traveled to another realm, but Mimir references Greece. I mean, he like talks about it,
Exactly.
like he knows it. So I don't know. And I think like Mimir, like he has a side quest that delves into his origin about being from another realm as well that isn't represented in the game. So I don't know.
Yeah, they mention a lot that he's an Aesir, and I guess I didn't realize that in the first game, but I guess Mimir is from Asgard and is an Aesir.
Not originally, but he was taken in by the Aesir at some point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So not
So-
original.
He talks about his origin in some other realm that's like a jungle or something, and eventually like some king like betrays his people or something, and a bunch of people die, and that's like one of the side quests you do for him. I haven't gotten to the end of it yet. It's the one where you fight all the berserker gravestones.
You haven't gotten to the end of that.
No, did you?
I'm aware of what's at the end of that.
Oh, I've done all of the stones except for the very last thing. Like when you beat all
Do you
the
want
stones.
to talk about it?
Sure. I mean, I can't imagine it's that crazy, but I don't know.
You actually don't know, because I think it is actually really crazy.
Really? Oh no!
Yes.
I literally I did all the gravestones, and then the last thing that happened, Mimir goes, "Okay, that's it. Let's go fight the king now." And I'm like, "Cool," and that was where I left off. So
Yeah, I think the reveal / thing you find out or get afterwards is pretty huge. Like,
Really? Okay.
I'm down to talk about it now, but I also would feel bad that you didn't like see it naturally if it hasn't been spoiled for you.
No, I mean, I have no idea, but we could talk about it. That's fine. I don't know. I didn't really think. I was like, is this really going to be that big of a thing?
I
why I
can't
didn't do it.
believe this is like a random post game thing. Is how I feel about it.
Okay. Well, you could do it pre-game as well. Like, you don't need. No, that's not true. No, you do, because you need one of the seeds to have done it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that after you do that, I don't know if it's in the same spot or if they make you go somewhere else to find it, but after you do that, you're able to go to this prison, and in that prison is the real Tyr.
What?
Yeah. And then after you free him, there's a bunch of dialogue, and then you can find him in like most of the realms, and you can go talk to him, and he has like something to say about the state of everything that's happened in each of the realms.
Okay, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So, man, we should. Oh, God. Okay. That's pretty crazy. So, let's go back for a minute because. So, the reason that you're in Svartalheim is to get Tyr.
Yeah.
The god of war from this realm.
Yeah.
You get Tyr, and the whole thing is that he's a pacifist now. And so you bring him basically into this back, he's been held in prison for God knows how many years. It's probably like thousands of years at this point. Just like Mimir was in the tree in the first game, like just an unknowable amount of time imprisoned by Odin. And supposedly imprisoned because he previously led some kind of revolution that failed. The dwarves took part in, pretty much everybody took part in other than the Aesir, of course. And it failed and led to everyone being downtrodden. So presumably Faye was part of that, Kratos' wife as well. So you get Tyr, and basically throughout the whole game, he is pretty unlikable. Like they set him up as unlikable. He's okay.
So how did you feel about him until the reveal? Were you like waiting for him to suddenly decide to take action kind of because of the prophecy, or were you just like, oh, he's like standing his ground, like not all prophecies come true?
So,
or like, what was your
I was pretty sure what was going to happen was he would be so fed up with all of the violence that follows Kratos, Atreus, Freya, everyone, that he would turn. Like he would turn against them. Like basically, like because to me he was representative of like somebody who just wanted to be in the status quo, like felt like things were okay as they were, even though they really weren't. He was kind of like, at least there's no horrific violence. Like everybody's kind of doing their own thing, even though Odin like abuses everything. It's just
because realistically everyone could just chill. Like
yeah, I mean, it's not the
like
worst.
Winter is happening, but nobody's causing Ragnarok if we all just hang out.
Right. Yeah. Life isn't as bad as it could be. That's literally like the way oppression works, right? It's like it's like you're oppressed because you are a willing participant in a system that doesn't benefit you. Like overall, the system is structured in such a way. Like they drive this point home with the dwarves multiple times, where it's like the dwarves, their lives generally are not horrible. They're not great. They don't have their own freedoms like to a certain degree, right? They're forced to work to Odin's whims,
right? Yeah.
Which doesn't really benefit them much at all. But they have their own homes. They drink and eat and party and do whatever. They have a life, right?
Yeah.
And protecting that life is the status quo. And so Tyr kind of falls into that category where he's like formerly the god of war and formerly led a rebellion that failed, and his dreams and hopes were crushed. So like I was pretty sure that he at some point there's going to be like a big climactic moment where like Tyr would be like, enough violence, and he would side with Odin. in some capacity, right? Like I wasn't sure if he was ever going to end up fighting. Maybe like it would be like at the very end when like, you know, you're like massacring a god or something and he like steps in and finally like raises his fists against Kratos or something and you have to put him down or whatever. I don't know. But like he was a pacifist essentially for all the game. And what did you think about it?
I was always fascinated by the tier lore in the first game, so this was like always one of my most like something I was always very excited about because they show him in a trailer for Ragnarok, like maybe the first one, I don't know, but a trailer for Ragnarok. I was like, holy shit, like that's definitely tier. We're gonna fucking see tier.
Yeah.
And tier is like the character I want to hear talk the most because you never know when he's going to say some crazy lore shit because like he's the one in the first game that you see like a mural of like him seemingly visiting other realms. It shows like the God of War symbol for Greece. It shows one for Egypt. It shows one for the Norse symbol, and then it shows all these different symbols of all these other different lands and mythologies. And I'm like, okay,
yeah, it Tyr's
anybody's
temple.
Going to say right,
yeah,
some cool shit. It's going to be Tyr. So
yeah,
I was like, right. He was like always like a more nebulous thing to me because he's not really doing anything yet, and so I thought he was just kind of like this ticking time bomb waiting to go off, but I didn't realize what that was actually going to be. Like, I guess I was right in a way, but it was something else entirely.
Yeah, so essentially what happens, and I think my big problem with this is that you never really get a feeling for the scope of Odin's powers in this game.
You do and don't, in the sense that everybody literally is afraid of him and he's oppressed 9 realms pretty successfully, and that even gods pretty like fear him pretty directly. So it's just like you get it. And even in like that moment at the beginning of the game where he is present, at least for me personally, it's like you feel that in the room. It's like, oh fuck, like yes, Thor is here, but also Odin is here. And Odin's like, shut up, do your job. Like, and Thor's listening. And it's like, oh fuck. Okay, so like it's like you get it, but yeah, I agree with you. You don't really get to see him do anything other than crows and ravens.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear he can teleport wherever he wants, whenever he wants. He has a control and he's like Big Brother, man. He's got CCTV crows everywhere. Like he can listen to everything. You know, it's clear that he has a lot of power and a lot of wisdom, but it's difficult to tell what's possible, the extent of what's possible for him. So you go through a lot of the game with Tyr kind of playing this role of pacifist, like preaching that let's wait, let's not do rash things, let's not commit more violence, there's no need for that. And it comes across genuine. It comes across as a man who's been beaten down after a rebellion. Particularly, things come to a kind of a head when this is where shit starts getting weird because he's there in Vanaheim. Right? Or no? I guess not. Does he just stay at Sindri's house?
Yeah, he goes straight from prison to Sindri's.
And he just stays there the whole time? No, because he goes with you to the Light Elf, Dark Elf war as well.
Right, but that's what I mean. After y'all pick him up, like he goes through that quest, like whatever the end of that quest, and then he stays at Sindri's.
And he just stays at Sindri's. So it comes to a head when it's time, like you've gone, there's a really good part where you go back to Svartalheim with Brock, and you have a moment with Brock where you guys get to bond, and he asks Mimir a riddle, which I love. What grows the more you take away, and it stumps Mimir and pisses him off to no end. It's really good. And I love that he keeps guessing like throughout like the next few hours. If you do a bunch of side questing with Mimir, even when Brock's not around, he's like still guessing.
Still guessing,
It's really good. And you guys go and forge your new weapon together. You forge the spear in this giant forge, which is really just a weird lake that you use like a bathysphere from BioShock to go down
Yeah.
into. And
Going underwater is so cool in video
I
games.
know, yeah, it's the best. And like a weird like fish lady like makes the spear for you, and then Brock blesses it by spitting on it. It's just like
Yeah.
a really good thing, and so the purpose of
It
that
was great.
spear
Yeah.
is to eventually take out Heimdall, because you believe that it's the only way to stop Odin by bringing about Ragnarok, live up to the prophecy, take out Heimdall. You go to Vanaheim, um, to help break out Freyr and his companions who've been captured by Odin. You meet Heimdall there. What'd you think of the Heimdall fight?
With Kratos?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I don't like how they make such a big deal out of like needing a specific way to beat Heimdall, and it's just a spear that explodes. Like, I don't know why that bugs me so much, but it's just like they make such a big deal out of it. And then in the
Yeah.
end, you can just hit him without it too. Like, you can just beat the
Yeah.
shit out of him normally. And it's just like, I don't know. That's like something that I'm like, I don't know.
The
It just
only way I
doesn't.
could rationalize it, I agree with you. I had the same thought. The only way I could rationalize it is if it only makes sense in the sense that he understands things, right? Like it's less that he like reads people's minds and more that he understands so thoroughly how the world works that he uses his own expectations and an ability to read people to react basically before they can even do what they're going to do, right? So like in that case, like he knows how Kratos' axe works. He's heard about the chain blades. He understands that. It's basically bringing a new weapon into the world that he has no concept for. That I think
Yeah.
is the only way it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Um, so
I'm willing to accept that.
the gist is that the spear is infinite. You can throw as
Right.
many spears as you want, and it will never deplete. There's always another spear to take its place. And
Yeah.
then if you kind of stamp the spear butt down on the ground, it detonates the other spears that are out in the world.
Yeah.
And so, you basically throw a spear at him. He catches it because he expects that. He's like, oh, whoa, a spear, and then if you detonate it, he doesn't see that coming, so it blinds him. I think the reason that you can hit him with normal attacks by the end of that fight is just because he's so pissed that he's not thinking, right? He's just flailing at that point.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why it bugs me so much that they
Yeah.
hype up like needing this thing for Heimdall, and then it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it was a great fight. Like it was one of the most fun boss fights, in my opinion, that I can remember, at least off the top of my head. I was having the most fun learning how to hit him. It's just like, fuck, how do I hit this? What do they want me to do? Like, that was one of the more fun, and it made sense. Like, that he is like hard to hit. I don't know. I just, I liked it. I liked it.
He's also just so infuriating. Like they managed to write in a character who is the most annoying person. You just want him to die. You're like,
I hate him.
I cannot handle this fucking guy. And so it's pretty admirable just how much Kratos is like committed to not killing him. But Heimdall will not allow it to happen. Like you beat him one time. Like you drain his health bar entirely once. There's a cutscene where you're like, that's gonna be it. And Kratos decides to spare his life. And he gets so offended. He's like, I will not be pitied. And then you have to fight him in a harder form. Again, basically draining his whole health bar again. And only then does Kratos finally kill him. And it's pretty good. It's pretty satisfying. Like putting that guy down. But I mean, narratively, it does feel like it has a lot of weight. Like officially killing Heimdall signals the start of Ragnarok in the mythos.
For sure.
That is the story they've laid out. So it does feel super meaningful when it happens. I think this is really where the story started working for me. Like at this point, I was like fully invested. I was on board
Hmm.
with everything. Like I was super into it. Before that, it was kind of just some loose threads that were vaguely interesting. I wanted to see how it would turn up, but the Heimdall fight was really where I was like, all right, this is getting good. Um, and you know, essentially, you rescue Freyr and his people, and there's a big like escape sequence where everyone's getting fucked up. Yeah, what's his name sacrifices himself, finger
Yeah.
quotes, and then you can go rescue him later. Big Veer? Big Veer.
I could not
Okay.
tell you. I did not remember his name. I
Yeah.
just knew as soon as the camera started to slowly like zoom, I was like, this guy's about to fucking go all out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forgive me, senpai, for I must type shit. Like
Yeah.
you could just tell. And then he did, and I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah. There's like a boat, like you're flying in a boat, and he jumps
Witness
out.
me.
Yeah, exactly. And stabs a dragon on the way down, whatever.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So,
Don't know why we're given that boat if we never used it, but
yeah, kind of
I'm
weird.
assuming
A
yeah, it's
DLC thing, I
important later.
guess. Yeah. And you get back to, everybody retreats back to Sentry's house, and there's like a big confrontation where they're all deciding what to do now. And Tyr's like, why would we do anything? I mean, we could just not do anything. And everybody's like, what the fuck are you talking about? and Brock in particular will not let it go. Like, he's like, dude, what is your deal? Like, why are you like this? And finally he like Tyr just snaps and is like, why, like, just shut up, like, why don't you ever stop talking, and just stabs Brock in the chest like 3 times and
Yeah.
kills him, kills Brock. And it's then revealed that Tyr has been Odin all along.
Fooled me.
I'm shrugging my shoulders. It fooled me too, because I didn't know it was fucking possible. So I mean, there's that. But yeah, I mean, it got me. I was definitely shook. Like I was concerned about Brock, and I was surprised.
Yeah, that moment was huge for sure.
It's definitely the big turning point in the story, emotional and otherwise. I mean, everything that happens there is pretty crazy. Like it kicks off events officially at that point.
And it changes everything prior to. You're like, shit.
Yeah.
Like everything Tyr said, everything Tyr heard, like it all has a different context now. And then like, which they address what I'm about to say plenty, but they, brought in Odin essentially to Sindri's house. It's such a crazy moment for sure.
It's really crazy.
And it changes like the tone of everything involving the characters in that room. Like moving forward is like shit.
Yeah, at that point the stakes were huge. Like there was absolutely no way I could go and do side questing at that point. Like I was like, all right, I gotta just run to the end of the game now. Yeah, Brock's death is pretty massive. They set up like a side plot early on where Sindri, like Brock had died once previously and Sindri couldn't handle it, so he brought him back and it left a piece of his soul behind, which made him slightly different, and people can like perceive that. And Mimir reveals that the piece he's missing is his direction. He's missing kind of the guidance, which means now that he's died again, he cannot go to the afterlife. That's it. Which is pretty profoundly sad, and it's something that I wish that Sindri touched on at some point, because it's a big deal. But this moment like breaks Sindri. Like he refuses to play along with any of this any longer. Like it seems like he's gonna quit for sure. Like it seems like he's gonna leave. He just vanishes and no one knows what his deal is anymore. But I really like when Odin is revealed, mask off moment. He's like, he has like Atreus by the neck or something. He's gonna like slit his throat open. And he tries to take the mask. I really thought he was gonna get away. Like I was pretty sure that was gonna be the last part of this game, was Atreus is held hostage. Kratos has to go and like basically give himself up to save his son, that kind of stuff. And then there'd be like a big fight or whatever. But I thought for sure that was how it was going to go. But they stamped that down really quick. They get Atreus back immediately. Like he doesn't like Odin is not successful in his kidnapping attempt, and he doesn't get the mask. So basically, they leave this situation pretty okay, other than the death of Brock, which is a major upset. But
So I want to talk about the mask.
yeah,
I hate it. I hate the mask. I don't like it. At least because Odin doesn't get it. And that's like beautiful in a way because Odin doesn't get what he wants.
yeah,
It's just like cool. But I think Odin didn't want to die either. Like that, just killing him after he gets what he wants would have been just fine with me. Like,
yeah.
but it seems like such a waste of plot for Odin's whole thing to be about this mask that we know nothing about. We don't know what it does. We don't know what will happen when you get it or anything about it. It has no like real lore equivalent to like Norse mythos at all. There's like no, it's not like, oh shit, that's the mask of blah blah blah. Like holy shit, they're putting it in the like nobody knows what this fucking mask is. It's not real. Like it's not cool. It looks like the fucking mask from the Jim Carrey movie, which that's kind of cool, I guess. But like,
dude,
even that, like, I don't know. I hate this fucking mask so much. I hate that we don't get to see what its purpose is, and that it just gets fucking thrown into the hole, and the hole goes away.
Yeah.
And like the only thing I like about that and the mask existing is getting to see Odin be so upset about it, and him being like, "What was it all for?" Like,
yeah.
that is cool. But I almost wish we would have gotten that "What was it all for" as his like dying breath instead, after he would have like gotten the knowledge of everything or like whatever it is. Like,
I was like,
I just feel like it was such a waste, unless it comes back later, which
it's possible.
I'm sure it will.
It's possible. Right. It's. I was like 90% sure that the death of Odin wasn't going to be, because I really didn't want an Odin boss fight. Like to me, that doesn't really make sense for who he is. Like I understand that he's powerful, but his power lies in like manipulation and subversion. Sure, he's maybe strong too. I don't know, but it didn't really seem like a boss fight kind of guy. I was really hoping his end would be basically they manipulate him into using the mask incorrectly or something, like Atreus could easily be like, hey, here's what you got to do. And he would just do it. Right. So I really thought that they were going to use that to be his downfall. Like he would basically kill himself by looking into the scar without, the proper protection or the proper precaution or something. But I agree. Yeah, the mask is underutilized. It's such a huge focus of the game and yet doesn't go anywhere yet anyway. So who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and basically.
And so, sorry, go ahead.
So at this point, I mean, I don't know, maybe we're headed in the same direction, but at this point I was like, okay, well, I guess was Tyr not really there all along, or did they switch at some point? Like that was really where my head
That's what I was wondering too. Yeah. Never there though, according to the real Tyr you'll find.
So now I need to literally as soon as we're done with this, I'm gonna go and look at that and see what the deal is.
I was wondering if I wanted to ask you earlier when you mentioned you were going to the funeral. I was like, did you go find Tyr? But I didn't want to like say it. So I guess before we keep going, I want to say what I thought was going to happen based off of like the prophecies and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought for sure they were going to lean heavily into like Loki lore that it like pre-exists about him being like very deceptive, and they were going to trick Odin into thinking Kratos had died, hence the prophecy, and also continue to trick Odin by serving him, quote unquote, but really that's not like his intentions. And none of that really happened. I mean, yeah, Kratos never has a death moment. At least I never thought he was going to die at any point. And then Loki doesn't really serve Odin, at least in the way that I imagined. Like they definitely do quests for Odin's like benefit, but it's never sort of how I imagined things as they did the prophecy. Like not even close, like not even a little bit. Like the prophecy should have been Loki goes to Asgard. Like that's basically what he did. Like he doesn't like serve Odin in my opinion. I mean, I guess he kind of does, but I don't know. Yeah, things didn't play out how I thought, and I think that's more or less for the best. I think I like how things kind of played out. I think, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it ended up being relatively straightforward overall. I
yeah,
mean, tier
right,
notwithstanding,
right,
which is a pretty big twist, but it doesn't affect that much. Like, it's basically just like, all right, tier's gone. Guess we're just gonna fucking fight now, and then they just summon a realm-wide war on
right.
Asgard where they make everybody show up. There's like a little side quest where you go to Muspelheim and like get like this cool ass dude who's made of fucking fire
Yeah.
to be a giant for you, which I thought was really cool.
Can we talk
Is
about
that
that for a
Surtur?
little bit?
Is that Surtur?
Yeah,
Yeah,
starter.
yeah,
So
sure.
um that's like a part of the game that has a lot of cut content apparently. And you're like originally you were supposed to, I don't know. There's a lot there though, I guess. We'll just leave it at that. But that's an interesting part of the game because I wouldn't have guessed other than I guess the end kind of feels rushed a little bit once you're doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's apparently a lot more to that and you're supposed to like fail the first time when you like shove the stuff into his chest, it's not going to work, and then you have to like go find his wife and basically make her do it, and she's
Okay.
not very happy about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, other than I was ready for the game to kind of get to the end already, I kind of am sad that got cut because it seemed kind of cool.
Did you go to where is she? Niflheim,
I
or
think she's in Niflheim. Yeah,
did you go to Niflheim after?
is I've looked into like pretty much everything you can do because I knew I wasn't
Okay.
going to do it,
Yeah.
but I didn't go do it.
I went there because there's a berserker gravestone there.
Yeah,
And on the way to it, you hear like weeping off in the distance, which is
yeah,
really creepy. And I was like,
yeah,
and they're like, oh, it's Surtur's wife or whatever.
yeah.
I was
Right.
like, oh, right, yeah, they mentioned that, and at one point, I don't remember if it was. I think Freya goes, oh, should we like tell her what happened? And Kratos just goes, she knows.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
yeah. So I didn't end up exploring around because that's one major thing about this game. Getting around is a fucking huge pain in the ass, and it makes doing side content extremely draining,
Yeah.
and pretty boring. Because like, okay, I got to teleport to this gate, and then I have to go. Like, for instance, there's a berserker pit in the mines. Oh, great! Like, I gotta
Yeah.
fucking go all the way, take the reverse way that you rescue Tyr back across the lake, go backwards through the mines. Now I'm fucking lost. I can't just teleport out because I'm lost. I gotta find my way back. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like
Yeah.
crazy ass shit. So they really make it a pain in the ass. So when I heard the crying, I was like, damn, I should walk around. And I looked at the Niflheim map and I was like, dude, am I just going to walk around in circles and there's going to be nothing and it's going to be really stupid? So I just left because I was just like, if there was something I would know, I feel like it would show up on the map.
Yeah.
Or
Did
something.
you, in terms of like stuff we've talked about, the only thing I haven't heard you mention is the stuff with the ravens. I don't know
I did
what
all the
realm it's in.
ravens.
You
Yeah,
did all that?
I did all
Okay.
that. The ravens are
Did you,
pretty easy. They end up coming up pretty naturally across the length of the story.
and you did like the thing
Yep. Yep.
at the end of that, the
Yep.
like raven
Keeper.
keeper or
Yeah.
whatever.
It
Yeah.
was just a shitty boss fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No real, I mean, lore to speak of other than
Right.
the fact that apparently Odin murders children now and turns them into ravens.
Yeah.
So, that's it.
Did you end up finding Thrud?
I did. Yep.
I
So,
thought that was cool. Yeah.
yep. So I thought she was gonna talk to you, but she doesn't.
Yeah. She just dips out.
Yeah, she's like, "All right, see ya." Like,
Yeah.
doesn't even acknowledge that you're there at all. Really, like,
No.
finds Mjolnir and then flies off, and that's it. I've been working on mopping up the remnants of Asgard. Did you see what that leads to?
I feel like I did. I can't remember now though.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like the realm, Asgard explodes at the end after you kill Odin.
Yeah, it might just be an item or something because I didn't write it down.
Okay.
But I remember what you're talking about. And there is a payoff, but it might just be an.
Yeah, there's 10 of them, so I think I'm on like number
Yeah.
7 or 8 right now.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do that probably before I call this game quits. I don't know if I'm gonna get
Yeah.
the platinum. because I'm not sure what I need to do to get the platinum. I think I need to find like a bunch of scrolls and shit, which I don't think I really want to do. But I'm
Hell no.
close. I'm close. I mean, I assume the Berserker Stones and the Asgard Remnants are 2 trophies, and I think after that I only need like 2 more. So, or 1 more maybe, but yeah. I don't know. The only game I ever got a platinum for was Marvel's Spider-Man.
Oh, really? I'm
Yeah.
a madman, dude. I have a platinum for Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, and Elden.
Elden Ring, I mean I played it on PC, so but I am 1 achievement away.
Nice.
And it's the one for or I guess it's how many ending achievements are there? 2 or 3?
3 or 4, I think.
Okay. I only have whatever those are the only ones I'm missing are the ending ones. So
Yeah.
because I didn't get multiple endings. So
Yeah.
that's all. But yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'll do that one day. I don't know. Bloodborne I didn't end up doing it. I don't remember why. I think it was the Chalice dungeons. I didn't want to do the
It's the
Chalice dungeons.
Chalice dungeons. Yeah,
Yeah,
those suck.
I didn't want to do the Chalice dungeons. So that was that. Um yeah, I might get it for this. I don't know. It's not really worth it. It's
No,
not.
it's not. No.
It's not worth it. But yeah, so I mean, just I guess just to wrap up, narratively, I mean, there's a lot of good payoff. You kind of bring about Ragnarok and things play out pretty much exactly how you think. I mean, it's a gigantic war. It's a pretty cool visual where everybody's fighting. The dark and the light elves are united once again by Freyr. Everybody
Yeah.
shows up to the fight. Surtur's there, although he doesn't seem much like himself anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
I love the throughout the use of both of these games, just random dwarf magic
mhm.
doing whatever you need. It's just the perfect MacGuffin and it never makes me mad. I'm like, yeah, this is fine. I accept this.
Yeah.
And just Sindri coming in with the thing, smashing it, and all the dwarf machines falling apart. I'm like,
Yeah.
they don't ever need to explain that. I'm just here for it.
Yeah, I guess it's really just that that was their subversion the whole time. They were building in a fatal flaw into all of Odin's war machines. That was how I read it. It was like that was the little dwarf revolution right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually didn't even think about it like that because they just do whatever they need to with magic
Yeah.
at all times. They just hit something with their hammer and it does whatever they need. So I didn't even think about that. But that's actually really cool.
Yeah. It's
a good read.
It's interesting. Like, the dwarves are the only people who don't show up for the final battle, but
Right.
that's kind of the payoff for them is they've done enough. They've suffered enough. Sindri especially is like, I'm not letting another dwarf die for this cause.
Right.
Which is understandable. Yeah, you kind of fight through this massive war. There's a good kind of payoff where you meet Thrud as Kratos, and it seems like you're gonna have to fight, but then things kind of settle down. Unfortunately, Thor doesn't get the message, and you have to fight Thor again, which it's a nice kind of full circle moment where you're from the beginning of the game to the end.
Right.
The fight plays out pretty similarly, I think, to how it did at the beginning, but
yeah,
I had no trouble with him at all. He was like handily bested, but he ends up killed by Odin, which is pretty depressing, I think.
Yeah, I was pretty sad about that. You can definitely see the I don't know, like the internal struggle Thor is kind of going through the whole game. He's from the moment you see him in like your house at the beginning, just clearly already been broken down by like Odin, and it's just like a worn down version of like whatever he used to be. Like you never really see true Thor. We only get to see beaten down Thor.
Yeah.
And he gets killed right as he's like, I could turn around maybe. Maybe it's not all said and done.
Yeah, Odin gets him through the gut, dude. It's fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean, final battle with Odin. It's okay. I thought it was a little long. I didn't die, but there were a couple times where I was like, "Damn, I'm getting kind of close."
Yeah.
Um, I thought for sure I was gonna die, but they drop enough health randomly throughout that fight that I ended up scraping by pretty much just barely. By the time I beat him, I was like pretty sure I was about to die, so it worked out. Yeah, he's I don't think a particularly exciting boss fight, to be honest, which is a lame note to end on. But
I feel that way about the whole game except Heimdall. That's the only
yeah,
boss fight I think I really enjoyed, honestly. The
yeah,
gameplay really took the back seat. Even when I was enjoying it, like after getting the spear and sort of actually enjoying it, it still took the back seat for the whole ride.
yeah, yeah. I would agree. Um, yeah. You beat Odin. The mask is destroyed, and Odin is trapped in one of the balls that the giants are in.
Yeah.
And just when
I
you
kind of
hmm?
okay, go ahead.
No.
No, yeah. I was gonna say I kind of didn't like that until, but
Yeah, just when you think they're gonna let him live, just as a little pachinko ball,
yeah.
Sindri flashes it out of nowhere into existence and just smashes it with a hammer into fucking oblivion.
Amen, dude.
And dips out just as soon as he was there. He's gone. And
Yep.
yeah, I mean, and then Surtur's about to destroy the whole realm.
Yeah. I
And
hate this, by the way. I
yeah,
hate this part.
he's about to destroy the whole realm, and then somebody else needs to die. So Freyr decides to sacrifice himself by letting everyone else escape by using a shield to protect them on the way out. It's I guess Ingrid, his sword, which was his sword all along, but Atreus was using for a while, has the ability to create a shield. I don't know, kind of weird.
Yeah, it was really bad. That was a really badly written moment. They literally could have killed that character earlier when he was literally dying.
Yeah,
And they chose to continue his life. And
just to kill him here.
yeah, it's just like I genuinely did not like that. And the reason for him dying doesn't make sense. Like if the sword is the reason you're holding it back, just step back
Yeah,
while holding the sword there. And also you're like somehow stopping the literal manifestation of the apocalypse.
yeah,
It just doesn't make sense. I don't know. I hated that. It's one of the few moments that I really didn't like, but
yeah.
nothing's perfect. It's okay. Not a
Yep.
big deal.
Freyr sacrifices himself so everyone else may live. Um, we didn't even talk about the wolf. Because
Which one?
it's kind of a B plot. The wolf from hell, who then Atreus puts Fenrir's soul into and becomes
Yeah,
like the teleporting magician of
that
wolves.
I I didn't talk about it because it's so underused. But I
Yeah.
guess we can talk about how underused it is that they set up this dope ass fucking thing
Hmm.
and then proceed to literally not use it at all the whole game.
Yeah,
They
except in
literally
this
get a
moment.
wolf. Right. Well, yeah, but even they're not using it. Angerboda decides to use it,
Yeah.
which is cool. I'm glad it got used because then I really would have been pissed. But like, yeah, I don't understand why they get a wolf that can tear like holes through realms and they tell
Yeah.
to go home and then get proof that it went there successfully. So it knows where to like it can choose where to go basically. It
Yeah, it
knows
does
that
stuff.
it can do that.
Yeah.
So and then they choose not to utilize that is so weird to
Yeah.
me.
Like the
But
parts where they're like having difficulty with the
how do we get to Asgard? I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe you're fucking wolf, bro.
Yeah,
Like
do the realm wolf. Yeah, I don't know. There's or like when they're in Asgard and all the gates are being destroyed, I thought the way that they were gonna
yeah.
fix that was using the wolf, but nah, they just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But yeah, so Angerboda shows up at the end to save everybody's life using Fenrir's new wolf realm tearing abilities to get everyone back
Yep.
to safety. Um, and yeah, I mean, I like the moment there at the end where um, you play Atreus walking up through the mountain that they're chilling in Midgard. Everyone's there post battle, and they all have like a little something to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
I like that. I like, there's lots of good little moments. Um, and then you get to the top, and Kratos is there, and I like that. There's like a interesting little, you and Kratos go to look at the new shrine.
Yeah.
I guess that presumably Faye knew about. I don't know. Um, and it's like a shrine that's like been painted, and it shows the full journey, everything that happened, predicting everything all the way up to basically that moment.
Yeah.
Um, and then you take over as Kratos, and he kind of peeks around the back, and there's another shrine there, which I'm like, dude, how did
Yeah.
Atreus not think to look at the back, bro? But yeah, Kratos peeks around the back, he opens it up, and it shows like basically a kind of a happier conclusion where he's a god that's being revered by the populace for his kind of saving the world, saving the realms, I guess. And that's sweet. It's a nice little wrap up.
Yeah.
Um, and then they Freya, Mimir, and Kratos say they've got some work to do, and Atreus says he's got something he's got to do, but he's got to do it by himself. And he dips out. So presumably that's where that DLC would kind of pick up is, hey, what's Atreus up
Yeah.
to? You know,
Yep.
it's a cool game. I I think it's one of those stories that really preys on the your attachment to those characters.
Yeah.
Um, it's like when it was over, I was ready for it to be over gameplay wise, but narratively, I felt like I wanted a little bit more.
Yeah.
Not in a
Same.
bad way at all, like in a
Right.
good way.
Yeah.
I was like, there's just a
Yeah.
little bit that I want wrapped up before I say I'm totally done with this. So that's why I kept doing some of the side stuff afterwards. So you beat the game. You kind of at this point, for me, when I beat it last week, I turned it off. Like I was like, I need to step away from this. But I came back
Same.
to it today to wrap up that stuff. So I turned it on, and you pick it up. You're at the top of that mountain, and basically Mimir's like, "Hey, there's some stuff we could do. We could go check out Brock's funeral." And I was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
what? Brock's funeral? That's fucked up that you would put that in here." All right,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I went to Brock's funeral, and it's basically just a cute little moment where all of the characters are mourning and kind of sharing stories about how cool he was and how not cool he was. He was kind of a dick, but um, my favorite part. So like you go to his funeral, it's like a Viking funeral, of course. So they like put him on the ship and like send him out, and nobody's sure if Sindri's going to show up, but everybody's pretty sure he's going to show up, and he does
Yeah.
show up, and pretty wordlessly is just like there and then gone again. Um, Kratos tries to say sorry to him, or but he just doesn't. He doesn't hear it. He just disappears again. But my favorite part was as soon as he vanishes, Mimir solves Brock's riddle.
Yeah.
It got me. That was a good moment. Like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like Sindri like vanishes. He does his little blinking thing, and then Brock goes a hole. And Kratos is like, "What are you talking about?" And even me in my head, I was like, "What the fuck is this guy talking about?" And then he says, "What gets bigger the more you take away? A hole." I was like,
Yeah.
"Damn!
Yeah.
Now that's brilliant. Now that's imagine if all the writing in this game was that good. That's fucking genius."
Yeah. Yeah. I liked it.
Yeah. So a very good game. Yeah, really good. Yeah, going back to Charl, all of these little emotional payoffs, they all work in the game's favor. It makes you feel more positively. You look back on the adventure and you're like, yeah, we really accomplished something, didn't we? So yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah. This game, just like the first one, make me feel at the end that I could watch the sequel right now, but the
Yeah.
sequel just doesn't exist yet, so I can't watch it yet. But it definitely make me want more in a good way for sure. And I really like that this game, just like the first one, is doing this thing that games don't really do, where the side content is like relevant and uh mentioned. And I can tell based
Yeah.
off of the post game and side content of this game, that's definitely like going to be a continuing trend. Like they,
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting way to like go about game design. I hope that kind of continues to be more of a thing. Like I want side content to feel important. Like plenty of games make side content like interesting, but not so much to like main narrative or like dialogue and main narrative. Like it's all usually sort of on the
Yeah.
Mass Effect ship. They'll mention it in passing, like that you did this thing, but never like in a cutscene, like in the main like quest cutscene.
For
They're like
sure.
talking about this thing you did. Like it's like
It's really
that's such a
rare.
cool, just nice touch. Yeah,
Yeah. The
and
only other game I can think of is The Witcher 3.
I
Maybe
was just about to
also
say, I
2.
bet something like The
Yeah.
Witcher
But
has done it, but
it's really rare. I agree.
yeah,
Disco Elysium, I guess.
interesting. But yeah, this game did a lot of cool things. I was talking to Merced about this. It's like really
Did he play it?
hard for me. Yeah, he played it all the way through.
Okay.
I think my issue with like the game ultimately is that it became really hard for me to separate the like game from the movie. And it's like, what am I sitting down to do today? Maybe I actually feel like playing God of War. And then I boot it up and I get started, and now I'm like kind of in like cinematic mode for
Yeah.
longer than anticipated. And it's like, okay, well that kind of killed my like internal pacing, like what I wanted to do. Like I sat down ready to kill. And now I'm
Yeah.
like kind of chilled out, and it's like, okay, I guess I'm gonna, I don't know. And then like maybe the next time I boot it up, I'm like, I'm kind of ready for some fucking story. And now I'm like playing the game for 2 hours, and it's like shit. And you
Yeah.
also can't like really predict, at least in my opinion, in Ragnarok, you can't really predict that cadence very much. Like it's not as consistent as I feel like it is in the first one. Like
Yeah, I agree.
it's kind of all over the place. But other than that, yeah, I'm very pleased.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. It's like it needs to catch you exactly in the right mood, because sometimes you're
Yeah.
like, damn dude, I'd really like to push the story forward, and then you're like, okay, now I'm in the dragon crater and I have 9 hours of side quests.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right, fuck. Like, especially for somebody like me who's gonna do that shit because they have to. I mean, I feel compelled to do that shit. So I think
Yeah.
I think I just hit, like, with post game stuff, 45 hours with this game. So um real
Not me.
real sicko moment.
Yeah.
So I think that'll do it for us this time. I think next time we get together, which I think should probably be this weekend, because we need to talk about Andor.
That's what I was going to ask you, if you wanted to briefly talk about that now or just wait for next time.
What do you want to do? You want to make it a whole thing, or you want to just wrap it up? It's a good ass show. Kind of deserves better
It
than a
is.
footnote.
It is
But
really good. Yeah. Yeah, we can wait.
all right, let's
Yeah.
give it a few days. We'll talk about Andor.
Yeah.
Gotta get pumped up and ready to go. Fucking good ass show, man. Better than God of War, right?
It was really
It's really good.
really, really good.
It's really good, yeah. All right. Thanks for chatting, Crossley. I feel like this was
same here.
therapeutic. Now that you've revealed something to me about this game, I'm literally about to go do that because it's driving me insane. I feel like I need to know.
Yeah, definitely message me your thoughts.
I will.
I guess we can talk about it next time.
Yeah, we'll touch on it briefly when we get back in. But,
Yeah.
All right, man. Good chatting with you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks as always.
Of course.
See you again next time.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.